In this video, I'll go over some techniques for composing 3D models. That is, we're going to be reorienting the camera so that it views the virtual geometry in such a way that we create a pleasing composition. Go ahead and open the library PSD file to begin. This model was created by Oddkava, and I found it in the Trimble 3D warehouse. I made a text layer to make a note of that here. Select layer 1, which is the actual 3D model, and you can see that here from this cube in the corner of the thumbnail. Then open up the workspace drop-down and select 3D. This gives us a 3D panel right next to the layers panel, so click on 3D and make sure current view is the selected node. Then go to the Move tool, and over here on the options bar select this first tool, which is Rotate the 3D object. Position the cursor either above or below the object, but not on the geometry itself. And then drag to the right to reorient the relationship of the camera to the geometry to create an oblique point of view, something like this. The next thing we can think about is the field of view over here. Right now it's set to a 50mm camera lens, and that approximates the human eye. If we want to make a more dramatic composition, we can make the field of view smaller. Let's change this to 28. That will create a slight wide-angle view. However, it makes the building farther away, so we need to now choose the Slide the 3D Object tool up here on the options bar, and then drag the cursor down to bring all of that geometry closer to the camera. This adds a little bit of drama to the image. We can fine-tune it by then rotating and getting the composition just where you like it to showcase this particular project. You can also use this tool to drag the 3D object over like that. This is actually transforming the camera rather than the geometry because we have the current view node selected here in the 3D panel. The next thing we should do is settle on a final aspect ratio for the image. By default, 3D models come in as a square, so we can change that. Go to the Image menu and choose Canvas Size, and then make it wider. Change the units to percent and make it wider, let's say 150% wider. Okay. Now if we want, we can change the aspect ratio to a set ratio by using the Crop tool. Go up here and choose 16:9, and then let's resize it by scaling this down from one of the corners. And before I start dragging, I'll hold the Option key down to ensure that I scale from the center. So I'll drag this down about like that, and then click Commit. So this is about the composition that I'm looking for. This is about right. However, I haven't settled on a image size. We'll do that next. Go to Image, Image Size, and right here you can see that this is relatively small. This might be suitable for a web graphic, but you could boost this up to a larger number, say 2000, and it won't really adversely affect the quality because we're dealing with a vector 3D model in the first place here, and so it's resolution independent. We can scale it up or down without loss of quality. I'm going to zoom out a little bit here so I can fit the whole thing on the screen. Now we need some kind of a backdrop. We can create that going to the Layers panel and click this icon right here to create a new gradient fill layer. And then you can create a new gradient or choose one of the gradients that's here. I'll just start with the black and white gradient. And then I'll click on the gradient itself to open the gradient editor. And then I'll click on this color stop and then click on this color and choose a light blue color. This will be the bright part of the sky. Then I'll go over here and choose this stop and then click on the color swatch and choose a deeper blue color. So now my gradient is fading from lighter blue up to darker blue. Okay? Okay. And then let's drag this down below the 3D model and you can see that that acts as a backdrop. However, we need to think about a ground plane as well. So let's go back to the gradient thumbnail, double click click on the gradient swatch, and let's drag this stop over. So that's going to be the bright part of the sky. And right next to that, I'm going to click to add a stop. Then I'll click on a color, and I'll choose a green color to represent the ground. And you can see that's up here. I can move that down, move this over, so that we can adjust where the ground plane is really happening here. And if I bring them closer together, the transition will be more sudden. And then we can also add a stop over here with a deeper green, perhaps. So we can create kind of a quick backdrop for this model. And while this is open, you can also drag this up and down, so you can set the eye level where you like. Let's go back to the 3D model, and I think the perspective isn't quite right. I need to do a little bit more adjustment by rotating the 3D model up a little bit, and then I need to drag it down. That's starting to look much better. So we have all these different considerations with every 3D model that we bring in. We have to compose the orientation of the camera with respect to the geometry. We have to adjust the canvas and image size. And finally, we have to create a backdrop in preparation for creating an illustration.